You may have seen this video where I showed the studio I record from. Well, I've made some upgrades since then, and I've also always hated this virtual background. It's made with Midjourney. I mean, ugh, gross. So today we fix that. So this is the new studio. We have all new walls, floors, lights, cameras, gimbal. Here, I'll give a better shot. Even my computer is new. So all of that's cool, but the newest thing is through this door. Pretty cool, huh? So this is what I've been up to for the past 2 months. Being an architecture and tech channel, it's no surprise that I'm working on the metaverse. Game levels made with game engines like Unity and Unreal Engine are prototypical spaces that eventually are going to evolve into the metaverse, but we're still in the early stages of that. So you have the separate internet and separate game levels, and we've gotten good at distributing games over the internet now, but we still have web pages instead of web spaces. So anyway, why am I even building this? Well, there's a lot of uses that a virtual space can have. So one being a really optimal way of working. I believe that in order to enable virtual work, we should have virtual spaces. And it doesn't work today because on top of not having the effective software for this, we also don't have the hardware, although the hardware is closer than the software. So for example, if you've used the Meta Quest 3 or the Vision Pro, they have pretty good resolution and they can sense the room you're in pretty well. I know there's still a problem going in between rooms and mapping, but it's getting pretty close. What is wrong, in my opinion, is the software, because the operating system is treated like a mobile operating system. I know it's like I think it's a spin-off of Android, or like a video game operating system. And to me, that's wrong. Although they're adapting it very well and every feature they add makes it more robust, I still would like to see it go way more in the direction of a general purpose operating system. The operating system would be accessible from the UI to be able to manipulate any part of it. That's one of my problems with macOS, is that they wall off a lot of stuff so that you can't do things like window managers. And so if we could get the computer and then that's on our face and then we could do whatever we want with it, that's just opens up the door to so many incredible experiences. Going back to why I did this, working in a virtual campus is very useful, especially when we start to get the developer environments, the IDEs, inside of VR. That's going to be incredible because you could code and then you could see your code as a 3D object and manipulate it, and then write some more code to change the object you're seeing. We right now have UIs that are in 2D and allow us to manipulate 3D, but you kind of have to ship your 3D outside of the 2D program and then interact with it, or they have like a play mode and then you'll play it, but it's not seamlessly integrated. So I think we need both, but we'll probably get the UIs first, where you'll get 3D buttons that you could press, or we have some of those in these drawing applications for VR where you can hold a brush and paint. But imagine having your entire video editor or your entire 3D modeling suite inside VR. So that applies to coding too. And I guess the difference is that coding is at a deeper level. So you could really do some crazy stuff with that. But all of these programs are going to be adapted to 3D. And so I want to be on that wave when it gets here. It's early, but I think this is a perfect moment to develop for VR and AR. So architecture firms are failing to adapt, and it's for a lack of creativity. The buildings designs are creative, but then the pipeline to make the buildings is pretty standard across the entire industry and very slowly evolving. And there's not as much incentive to grow the business, because when you have a tech startup, you could grow the business to be so much more valuable than when it started, but there's not many examples of an architecture firm growing so exponentially. So you don't have these people working for free in a garage in the hopes of one day in 10 years being a Google. And I think the solution is that if you're interested in breaking out of this trap, is that you need to innovate your business's workflows. But I'm not gonna keep going down that rabbit hole. I just wanted to talk about what was the motivation for this. I guess the last reason was that I'm a big fan of the channel Corridor crew, and they do visual effects, and YouTube is just the replacement for old TV and a substitute for movies. And it's getting more competitive. And in order to provide videos that are worth your time, I need to do graphics that are more advanced than just me looking into a camera straight and with a 2D background. So the 3D space is the beginning of that, but eventually there's so much that's capable with that. We can now program different graphics to be happening. I can have characters that I interact with. I can do body and face tracking. There can be different worlds and places we go to. So I should say thank you to Corridor. Now I want to talk about the inspiration for the design. Seeing channels like CoffeeZilla's and Fia's virtual reality show were a huge inspiration. Not to mention I have a friend who actually did something similar. His name's Matthias, and he did the Sunken Blimp stage, which is like a virtual reality world. In terms of the actual form and design, I looked at things like Mega Man from my childhood, Coruscant from Star Wars, Tron, and so I tried to capture details from those within my virtual campus. But the first thing I'll say is that this is a work in progress. This might as well be a massing model, because even though I slapped on materials, there is so much work left to be done. I'm not even convinced of the programming of it yet. I basically just wanted to get a feeling for the different volumes. Like, is the central corridor enough height? Things like that. And I only had 2 months to do this project, so I needed to cut it off where it is. But there's a lot of stuff to still do. For example, the details. The pathways have these light strips, kind of like Tron or Mega Man, but I'm not convinced by them. I'm not sure that they're the proper proportion and ratios, and I'm not convinced that these general winding pathways are how the final design will be. Not to mention that the inspiration, the unifying diagram for the space is a big bang. It's like a singular point that goes phew. And I feel like I did that in plan, but in elevation it's pretty flat, even though there are multiple levels. So I'd like to still develop that, maybe have suspended rooms, or I don't know, but something to give it more elevation. The park space is a flat plane, and that's just not to my standard. So there's still a lot to develop. This is just a starting point. Now I want to talk about Generate. The biggest update to Generate is that after 2 years, I've burned through all of Generate's runway. This means going forward, I'll have to work on Generate part-time. As for the YouTube channel, I'm trying to hit 50 videos. That's what Gary Vee has said in the past to do without assessing or thinking. Just try to produce 50 videos and see what happens. So I'm working towards that. Speaking of YouTube, let's talk about Google, because Google continues to take L's and it makes me not as certain in the future of YouTube. So I don't know if you've noticed, but YouTube's been adding more ads lately, as well as they're known for having a list of projects they invest in but then don't develop to fruition. Not only that, but they are in court right now and declared a monopoly, and the result of that is unknown. If the product of that is that YouTube is spun out, I hope that doesn't impact their creator compensation structure, because that is a huge incentive for making videos. Outside of that, tech continues to progress. We get a crazy thing every week, and housing remains unaffordable. As for development, I didn't want to talk about this, but I've noticed several competitors come out across the past couple of years, and I've been taking a lot longer than anticipated as well. But I wanted to let you know, in case you hadn't heard, of these 3 projects in the text to 3D generation space. So one is Latte 3D by NVIDIA. The next is OpenAI's Point E. And the final is Common Sense Machines. I think it's called Cube. And all of these are 3D model generators. I've seen some videos of people already doing things like animation with them, and it's pretty incredible what you can do by using text to 3D. Now, they're all doing image to 3D instead of text to 3D. The reason for that is that the text to 3D relies more heavily on having a database of like very similar models and high quality models, whereas if you can do image to 3D, it abstracts away part of the process. But I noticed that the results are very low resolution, and I wonder if that is the reason, because the image to 3D jump, to me that doesn't make sense. The model infers the back and sides of the image to make a 3D model, and I don't see how that could work, although I could be wrong. So I mean, these are very complicated systems. So I just wanted to let you know, you might find some utility out of that. So that's going to be it for this video. If you want a tutorial on how to make any of this, or how I chose my equipment and what the equipment does, let me know in the comments so I know what to produce for the next video. And also, I have a Discord now, so make sure to join that. All right, see you guys next time.